I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like time, energy, and confidence management controls how we show up for others.
Mhm.
And when we beat ourselves up the most, if we think about it, or we feel guilt or regret, it's usually that we're regretting how we showed up in the situation. If you start managing better how you show up and showing up the way you want to, guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to be like, that was a great freaking day. I feel amazing.
That was April Roberts sharing with us the importance of setting an intention as it impacts the way that we're going to show up in everything, the way we are going to impact others, and the way that our energy is going to be by the end of the day. We talk about this and so much more as we explore how to manage your time, energy, and confidence in this Star Coach episode. Hello, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. I think you're going to thank yourself for being here this week as well. We have a fantastic show all about the way that we manage our time, our energy, and our confidence. Something that we really need to be leaning into in whatever we do in life. And certainly for those of you who are coaches or leaders, who are in that place of helping others also reach their goals, look at the way that they're engaging with their life. These messages that are being brought today are absolutely key. I'm Meg Rentschler. I'm the host of the Star Coach Show. And just as we're getting started here, if you're enjoying the Star Coach Show and are finding what we do helpful, please subscribe wherever you listen. And then you'll never miss an episode. We bring new episodes every single week around the way that we are engaging with other people in partnership, in the way we communicate, the way that we help others really strive to be who they can be through our deep listening and our curiosity. We also all have a message or an impact that we want to bring to the world. And sometimes that's through being an entrepreneur or building our own business. So we want to help you figure out, how can I build my business? How can I get my message into the world in a way that really impacts people? So visit the Star Coach Show for that. And certainly if you are in an organization, if you're in the corporate world, we can help organizations be healthier and empower people through the power of coaching as well. So tune in. We have all those things that we're doing. And as in my work as an executive coach, I am getting that message out. I had the honor of delivering a keynote to a wonderful company this very week. And when I see the way that people absorb the information about how making just tweaks to the way that we communicate, really honoring people's autonomy and their own creativity and inviting them into conversations, how that changes motivation, changes the way that people engage with us, helps us do the work that we want to do more powerfully because we're doing it in partnership. So I've seen the impact of this again and again through the executives that I work with, through the coaches that I mentor, and the speaking engagements that I get to engage with the audience. It is powerful, and I'm just so pleased that you're here to experience this episode today, where I am joined by April Roberts. Now, April is a coach who helps Gen X women achieve more abundance, love, spirituality, and alignment, connecting with their femininity. She's a high achieving former attorney and financial advisor, and you can hear April's genuine desire and enthusiasm about helping all of us think differently about the way that we're engaging. We always have choice. We have choice about the way we show up. We have choice about the way that we are engaging with other people. We have choice about setting intentions or just kind of flowing down the river of life and responding to whatever is given to us rather than being intentional. April is also a podcast host. She hosts the Vixen Voice. And in that podcast, she shares stories of Gen X women that have shed the traditional definition of success to pursue their life's true passion. And that word, passion, passion, just comes up again and again when you engage with April. And I think you're going to really enjoy this interview as we talk about some sort of 10-story view things about time and energy and confidence, but then we also bring it down into some tactical things, some specific strategies that you can apply when looking at your calendar, when looking at the way that you're setting up your week, the way that you are paying attention to what drains you and what lifts you up. Super great. Can't wait to introduce you to April. So I'm not going to make you wait any longer. Let's go to my interview with April Roberts. April, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
Hey, Meg, I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I couldn't possibly be more excited than to spend this time with the head vixen. I mean, like, not everybody gets that opportunity every single day. In the work that you do, there's so many different things that you help your clients do to be better, to engage in a way that creates the kind of outcomes that they want. And what we decided to focus on in our time together was, how are we managing our time? How does that influence our energy and our confidence? All things that we all have time that we have to look at, and things that have to be done. Our energy can get spread too thin, maybe go in places that it's not the best thing to go. I remember I really learned this lesson as a therapist and carried it into my executive coaching. But I remember those stomach ache clients or the stomach ache activities that would be on my calendar, right? So if I looked at my calendar and I saw a particular person or a particular task that I had that drained my energy, that I looked at and thought, oh, I just don't know that I have the energy to see that person today or to do that particular thing. That needs to be managed. That needs to be looked at. And we're going to be talking about that and so much more. When we think about this management of our lives, one of the things that you said when we explored was, we need to know ourselves. Tell me a little bit more about that. The better we know ourselves, the better we can manage this thing we're doing.
I agree. So it's interesting because I share with you, I'm finalizing a keynote talk on this. And so we're really digging into why I believe what I believe about time. And I had my human design done. I've had my Colby, my print, my disc, like all kinds of assessments, and the human design was really fun. And I'm a projector, and we make up less than 10% of the population, right? And what I learned is my ideal peak creativity is if I only worked 8 hours a week. Okay, at this point in my life, not possible. But the point is, I am not built for the stereotypical 9 to 5. Now, if you know human design and you're a manifestor, a Manny, Jenny, or generator, you're like, and this is like 80% of the population, they are built to grind it out and work. And so it's so funny. Malcolm Gladwell has that book about how a lot of the captains of industry, and I always forget if it's Outliers or David and Goliath, but a lot of captains of industry actually have a learning disorder, ADHD,
right,
and they had to learn to think outside of the box, right? And so, I could go on forever about this, but like end of 1800s, they systematized our education system here. So,
right.
Your whole life you've been told you have to operate this way, you have to think this way. Here's what success looks like. Go to a good college, get a corporate job. And, I think that you and I and most of your audience has said, okay, I want off this hamster wheel, right? Like, I want to do things differently. The problem is no one has given us a playbook about how to do things differently. And so I think it's our job. We have control over two things in life, right? Our actions and our reactions. I really think we have control over our thoughts, emotions, et cetera, but that's a whole nother topic, right? But, so if you think about it, time, energy, and confidence management is controlling your action and setting you up for success in reaction, right? And another thing is, I realized that for me, time management is just being a good human being, For example, I'm here now with you. Your audience will listen to us. And that would be absolutely selfish if I didn't show up 150% when all of these people are giving their time, right? So for
Right.
me, honoring time management is a way of serving others. So I think you can think of it in all these ways, but you have to understand if you operate within the walls of the playbook or not. And that's why I think knowing yourself is so important.
So when you learned that about yourself through all
Mhm.
these assessment you've done in human design, and by the way, if any of you are perking up and saying human design, we've had a show around human design, and I will put the link for that in the show notes so that you can follow up with that as well, because it's very intriguing. So with that,
Totally.
as you learn about yourself, what are some of the things that you have, like, let's give some concrete direction. I learned this about myself, therefore it's reflected this way in the way that I manage my calendar, in the way that I
Yeah.
manage my interactions. You said one thing is I'm going to show up at 150%. What
hmm
else?
Yeah, and for me showing up, because I normally wake up very early, like before 5 o'clock, right? And so that means past 3 or 4, you're not getting the best of me. So I'm not going to do coaching past that time because these are my clients paying me for
Great
my time,
awareness.
right?
Yes.
And I want them to get the most. And I did the same thing when I was a financial advisor. I knew past 4:30, you're not getting the best of my brain. So, my last meeting was at 2:30, ending at 4. So part of it you can learn through assessments. Like in the Colby, I'm a 9 quick start. So I have lots of energy for projects and starting stuff, right? I'm a 3 and follow through, which means I don't like to finish the deal. So I know I need a team around me, or I'm not going to be
Right.
successful in my business because so much of success is follow through, right? And if right now I'm doing more follow through than normal because we're redoing our website, we're redoing our marketing. So we don't have the machine going right now.
Right.
So I'm kind of following through. It'll be great when we finish, everything will be automated and it'll run itself. But right now, I'm having to do more follow through. And honestly, Meg, it's just, I treat it as a season, but I am baked and done at the end of the day. I don't want to talk to anyone because I've been using a tank of gas where I don't have much, right? So I'm not
Great
making
awareness.
plans to go meet friends for dinner this week. I'm not saying, okay, I got to work out 2 hours a day because I know I need all my energy for this. And that's through an assessment. But honestly, you can just sit there and watch during the day. Like you said, there's that one thing on your calendar. Like when you pull up your calendar, do your shoulders go up? Or do you stay relaxed? Or do you say, oh, I can't wait for this week? Like, ideally, we all want to be like, I can't wait for this week. This is so cool, all this stuff I get to do. And so that's why, managing the rhythm of your calendar is so important. So pay attention to the things that suck your energy, pay attention
Mhm.
to the things that drain you or you find difficult, and you want to plan it into your calendar. Now, we're talking about knowing yourself. Again, there are plenty of models. Like Mark Twain said, eat your frogs first, right? Which are the things you
Right.
don't want to do. I personally don't like eating my frogs in the morning. I want to have wins in the morning and do things that give me energy. I actually do best eating my frogs at the end of the day when I'm just like, okay, let's get this done. And I'm just like very matter of fact about it, right?
Okay.
Someone else might want to eat their frogs in the morning, which are those
Right.
things you don't want to do. I really think the frogs should have their own separate day, and you should really take care of yourself that day and give yourself a lot of grace or half a day. So it's not interfering with the things that give you energy or where you're serving others, making money, etc.
I love that you're like laying out, be intentional. Look
Yes.
at what's there. What are the choices and how does it influence you? How can you show up your best? Because we all have things that we don't want to do, but we have to do.
Right.
Those things that we want to do more and more and more of, but that we have to do other things sometimes to make those things happen. So that I have this like visual and that I would say to my therapy clients, are you going to be a beach ball getting knocked around by the waves of the ocean? Or are you
Yes.
going to climb in the boat and captain the boat? And I think we all,
Love it.
even in the stormy waters, we can navigate the way or we can just get knocked around. And what we're talking about today is get in the boat and navigate.
I love that analogy. I mean, and the thing is, I know you coach as well, but the number one thing I get, so the reason we do time, energy, and confidence management first, because I have 5 basic pillars I coach on, and then we get into the deep dive of business scaling, et cetera, because I want to fix the entrepreneur first, right? Like we don't want any cracks in our foundation. And that's my, philosophy of coaching. So, really, these 5 pillars operate to help anyone's life, right? Like it's just making you a more solid person, able to show up fully in everything you do. In fact, I think about like my 28-year-old self who got married and moved to Italy and was found my first year of marriage in a foreign country away from my support system. I'm like, heck, if I had had these 5 pillars, that would have been a lot more successful than it was, right?
Right.
So,
Hindsight can be so incredibly illuminating. Yes.
yeah, but if you're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, you own your business, you're in a leadership position, you often are the product, you are the brand. And so you have to focus on filling up your energy tank because, if we think about it, especially as entrepreneurs, like, I mean, let's say this is even, so often we're operating in the deficit, like below
Mhm.
our optimal energy. You actually have to get in the positive to be creative, to solve problems. So, if you're a leader running a company, you are your business. It's so important that you get in the positive. And you can do that by managing your time and energy and confidence better. And it's usually, it's easier than you think.
So let's give some solid ideas around how we do that, that
Mhm.
everybody listening can make some choices about what makes sense for them. And I'm going to challenge all of you listening to execute on some of this, not just to consume the information, but then determine what can I do specifically that would move the needle for me and hopefully get you operating at least some of the time in that positive so that you're getting your most creative out. You're getting your confidence to rise and really meet those challenges that we all have as entrepreneurs. Well, we have
Totally.
even outside of being an entrepreneur. However, whatever you're doing, you have those challenges in life.
Well, and yeah, Meg, in my Vixen mastermind, most of the women in there are entrepreneurs, but they're also moms and running a household. And what
Mhm.
amazes me is how they come back and tell me they're running the household better and they have more energy, for managing. I mean, they have their kids on a calendar, their husband on a calendar, themselves on a calendar, the family calendar. And, then it becomes like, you have a rhythm to it. I don't like to say systems because you have to have flexibility, especially, when you're your own boss or in a leadership position. So you want a rhythm. So one, what goes on your calendar? I think that your goals, your important projects, your core values, like all of this, and really important is joy should go on your calendar. When are you taking time this week for pure joy, right? And joy should be its own color. And, we were chatting earlier about the example of, let's say you're writing a book. Maybe this quarter, your book needs its own color because
Well,
when
you
you're,
talk about its own color. So let's zero
yep,
in on what do you
okay.
mean by color coding your calendar?
Yes, I think that you should come up with the top categories that you're focusing on. You have to create a system and a rhythm that works best for you. That's why it's so important to know yourself. So, for example, the Vixen gathering, there's 4 shades of green on my calendar and they all mean different things, right? One is time with my team when I put my CEO leadership hat on. One is obviously time with clients. That takes different energy. I have a color for events like this when I need to show up and talk a lot, right? Like I need to know that energy. And then I have revenue generating activities as a color. So I can, just using that example, I can look at my calendar and be like, oh, there's no revenue generating activities on the calendar this week. Like, how, that's going to hurt my cash flow down the road. Like, I can know that in 2 seconds instead of having to
Because the
analyze.
color speaks to you and begins to create, because you're going to know those colors and it's going to send up a red flag, speaking of another color,
Yes.
if in fact you're missing some key activity on your calendar. Love that.
Completely. And everything should go on your calendar. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't get done. I mean, like, I'm so crazy about this that the weeks that I'm really packed, like unfortunately my mom was sick and I had to reschedule
Oh,
a
I'm
lot of things
sorry.
one week. I was in the hospital with her. Well, I came back the next week and I told my team, I was like, please don't do this to me again. I think I had like 8 podcasts that week, plus my coaching clients, plus my team meeting. And I literally was like, I'm going to have to wake up 30 minutes earlier every day this week to get all this done because, again, I want to honor other people's time. It's not the other person's fault that my team overscheduled me, right? I mean, I might, if it were acceptable to switch and someone I knew and I knew it was fine, then I would switch it out. But this was just not the case. I mean, as you and I know, we usually have people book for our podcast months to come. So you don't want to stand someone up. So I literally put wake up, eat breakfast, lunch. Don't forget to order lunch because I hadn't had time to meal prep, which I normally do. Like, go to bed. Like everything was on my calendar because I didn't want to extend mental energy or physical or emotional energy worrying about these things. So all I had to do was open my calendar and it told me what to do. And that gives you, I know many people listening are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be that scheduled. But it actually gives you freedom because
I was going to say
now,
structure gives freedom. It really does.
yes, because right now I'm talking to you, I'm talking to your audience and all the amazing people listening. I'm not worrying about what my team's doing. I'm not worrying about what I'm eating for dinner tonight. I'm not worried about my inbox because it all has a place on my calendar. And then when I get done at the end of the day, I'm not depleted. I get to actually live, I don't have to just go veg on the couch and watch TV, which is what I do when I have a tough week. Like I know myself.
Well, and the other thing that you said that I think is a really great concrete tip is that when you do find yourself up against the wall, like you were in that week, the structure of your calendar let you say, okay, so for this week, I'm going to get up a half an hour earlier because that's going to give me 2.5 extra hours this week. But it gave you, rather than spinning and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do or where I'm going to, you just looked at your calendar and said, okay, let's do a time limited extra half hour in the morning. And that's going to, and then I would assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you were strategic about what that half an hour was. It wasn't you're just getting up a half an hour earlier. You put a task into that.
Yeah, well, for me, I love to wake up and have my quiet time. I have 1 cup of coffee and then I meditate and pray for 10 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on how much time I have. So that morning routine's so important. And what happens is when we have a busy week, we throw our morning routine to the wayside, but that's actually when you need that morning routine. So maybe it meant I got 15 or 20 minutes meditating and praying instead of 40, which is like ideal for me. But I still got it in there, which then I went into my day peaceful, calm, like ready for whatever comes. Because, during that time, I get rid of the previous day. I look forward to I forgive everyone. I ask for forgiveness, like all this stuff that's just like clearing out all the mental and energetic clutter. And so, had I not woken up 30 minutes earlier and skipped that time, the week would have actually been tougher. Like getting 30 minutes less sleep was easier for me than skipping my peace time.
Because you know that helps you step into your best self versus the shadow self that can come out.
Right. Yes. Yes. And I love that you talk about best versus shadow self because that was such an aha for me to learn that. Also, I remember being mentored by, I like the Colby assessment and the Print assessment. I'm not sure which ones you use with coaching, if any. And I knew that I had this mentor in the financial industry who was the exact same Colby as me. So I'm like, cool, I'll just do everything he tells me. Well, he was just very like, I hate to say it, hard balls to the wall, like go get him. So I kind of started acting like that. And that does not suit me. And that does not honor my feminine energy. And I had to learn, okay, this I guess works, but this is my shadow behavior. And here's like the best self behavior, because I think sometimes we get confused, like what's
Right.
right or wrong. And it's really what feels best and what honors everyone.
Because what works for Fred might not work for April, and what works
Yes.
for Steve might not work for Meg. I mean, or, whatever. There are always people who have walked the path before us, who can mentor us, who
Yeah.
can advise us. And yet we've got to go back to the very first thing we talked about, know
Mhm.
ourselves well enough to know what is the thing that's going to make April shine the brightest, that's going to
Yep.
be, it's going to fire Meg up, because when Meg's fired up or April's fired up, the people we work with are more fired up.
I agree. I agree. And Meg, if you don't mind, I just want to give some practical tips to color coding your calendar.
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
number
here
one,
comes the practical time to take notes, everybody. Go ahead.
yeah. Number one, to begin with, do not overcolor yourself, like 3 to 5 colors at the most, right? Just start. This is going to be a process over time that you're going to feel what works for you. So, I actually had an ex boyfriend that literally had like 12 colors on his calendar. And you know what? It worked for him, but it drove me crazy. Like, I was just like, I can't look at your calendar. Like, this confuses me. As I shared, like green is the Vixen color from, the business, but then I have 4 shades of green. So if you want to do that and get into nuances like that, you can. But I really would start with 3 to 5 colors and really think what you want to prioritize your time on. And like I said, if you have a special project this quarter or something you're focused on or a goal, it might get its own color. For example, I used to have growth, spirituality, and health as one color. Well, right now I really need to lose weight and get back in shape. So it's going to become its own color to do health, right? Because it needs its own focus. And then I might put it back later. So, number one is don't overcolor yourself. Pick 3 to 5 colors. Make sure they represent what's important to you. Make sure one of the colors represents pure joy, because when you look at your calendar, if there's no joy, your challenge is to put one instance of pure joy on your calendar. And you know what makes you happy, right? Like whatever makes you feel giggly and happy and like a child again, like you want that. Like if you're laughing out loud during your pure joy time, awesome, right? Like just enjoy being a human being during that time. So start with once a week. And then the second tip is when you first do this, review it monthly, right? I like to do a model calendar. Like my team knows when I'm coaching, when I'm open to meet with them, when I'm available to do podcasts. So I have kind of an overlay of the model calendar.
Okay.
And what I'd recommend is review this every month. And somebody's listening saying, I don't really have that much. I think when you don't have much is when time blocking is important. So I've coached women who are starting businesses and they don't have a ton of activity yet, right? And I'm like, I don't care. You have to like time block your day. It might be walk the dog at 10 a.m. and then it's this. And they get amazing clarity and focus when they start time blocking their time. Because, you and I can say sometimes we have this day and we're like, cool, I get to do whatever I want all day. And you end up doing nothing because you have no idea what to do.
You have no structure once again. So it's
Yes.
that's that, oh, there's no sort of urgency, or I find that structure really helps me be more productive.
Yeah, I agree. And even I've started blocking Fridays for like creative work, and I've even started structuring Fridays. I mean, it might not be every hour, but it's like on the morning I'm going to focus on this, on the afternoon I'm going to focus on this. So that I have some guidance and I don't have to think. So yeah, don't overcolor yourself. Check it monthly to begin with. You're going to have to tweak it, like really review it, see how it's working for you. And then once you feel like it's set, I would still review it quarterly because, like we said, your focus might shift for that quarter. And, if you have a tough week or even a tough month or quarter, just remember we have seasons of our life and go ahead
Mhm.
and look forward to the next week, the next quarter, the next month and say, oh, okay, I'm going to get time to do X, Y, and Z there. you always want to create that light at the end of the tunnel.
So when you say review it monthly, review it
Yes.
quarterly, give us some tips on the kinds of things we're reviewing. What are we checking
Yep.
for?
So, what I would actually do is I like looking at things weekly personally. So, I mean, you should be planning your week, right? And so people talk about, do you do it Friday? Do you do it Monday? Do you do it Sunday? I'm very spiritual. So, I like Sunday to be my spiritual day. So, I refuse to plan my week on Sunday. Luckily, as we talked about, I wake up very early. So, I do it early Monday morning. If you do not have that time and it's going to jam your morning, do it the Friday before, right? But you're looking forward to that week. You're looking at what's going on. You're seeing how it makes you feel, just like you talked about.
Mhm.
Do you have that one activity that you go, oh, I don't want to do that? Here's a tip. If you have something that you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, and you can't reshuffle it, plan something you enjoy before and after it. Like basically, we hold that feeling in our body and in our energy field. So almost like after the thing you don't want to do, go for a walk, go grab a green tea, whatever it is that
Mhm.
you like, shake it off, right? Like you literally have to shake it off.
So sandwich it. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. So, yeah. So look at your week and just see how it makes you feel. And, like I said, that one week I came back and it was a one off because my mom had been sick. But then I coached my team. I was like, here's why I cannot have back to back podcast episodes. Like it doesn't give me time to set up for the next one, like
Mhm.
that you can have that conversation with yourself. Hey,
Right.
and then at the end of the week, when you're planning for the next, look back on that week and say, wow, this was a great day. Like it really flowed. Okay, great. How'd you structure that day? Or this day was really
Mhm.
tough. I was like baked and done at the end of the day. Okay, well, what happened that day? So it's a little bit of journaling, self reflection,
Mhm.
however you digest things, but pay attention to your body and your feelings. It's not just thoughts because our brain will convince us, oh,
Right.
you're supposed to work 60 hours a week. You're a startup. You have to do this. Like all that comes in. So listen to the wisdom of your emotions in your body.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So we had talked and I because we have now moved sort of into this virtual space and so many of us that
Yeah.
maybe used to do more face to face or different kinds of interactions are now all of our interactions are on Zoom. And what has the research shown that we need to be aware of about how Zoom impacts us? Or not
Oh,
just Zoom. I shouldn't Zoom it, but I mean like video. So it's not like
yeah.
if you're doing meetings or and you're not doing Zoom that this is but video conferencing. What have we been seeing about video conferencing?
I agree. So before we even get into research, I want everyone to think back to 2020 when you were first forced to go virtual, right? And remember how at the end of the day, you were like, why am I so freaking tired? I work the same number of hours as I normally do. So I just want you to like reflect on that time and how you felt to understand what it truly does to our body because what we're seeing is people are taking less breaks. They're just kind of zooming through the day, like jumping from meeting to meeting. Research actually shows that we're not working more hours, but we're burning out because we're visually overstimulated because we're looking at screens all day long. And that is actually what is leading to burnout for a lot of people. And in general, high performance research shows that the highest performers take a break on average every 52 minutes. And so you're like, but I have a startup, I have back to back meetings, I need to meet with this investor. Great. Here's what I guarantee you. Remember when we talked about the small changes? Instead of a
Mhm.
30-minute meeting, book a 25-minute meeting. I guarantee you can get the same amount done in a structured 25-minute meeting, right? Instead of an hour, book a 50-minute meeting. So you just bought yourselves 5 minutes or 10 minutes to be a human being. And during
Mhm.
that time, it's really important that you rest and reset. So resting can be as simple as like closing your eyes and sitting back in your chair for like 2 minutes, like 1 to 2 minutes makes a huge change. My office has a balcony right off of it because I live in a high rise. So I'll go sit out there and set an alarm for 2 minutes just to like change up where I am. Or for five,
Mm-hmm.
if I have a 20-minute break, I'll go take a little nap and set my alarm and then come back in here. But that's the rest part. And the reset is refocusing, right? So, okay, I just finished this amazing podcast with Meg. Here's what was great about that. Here's what I need to follow up. Now, what am I going to do for the next half hour or hour so that you're like kind of leaving behind what you
Mm-hmm.
did and refocusing on what you're going into? So that's the two important things: rest and reset.
Love it. So it's sort of, do a cleanse or a release and then set an intention for the next thing. Just different
Yep.
language for the exact same thing.
Yeah. And in fact,
Love
there's
that.
a release meditation. You can just close your eyes, set the alarm for 2 minutes, and just repeat the word release. It does amazing things.
Amazing things. It really,
Yeah.
and then when we set an intention, I'm going into this podcast with April. I'm going to be curious and focused and
Right.
energetic. And so I'm setting that intention, sort of painting the picture of how I'm going to show up.
Yes. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like time, energy, and confidence management controls how we show up for others.
Mm-hmm.
And when we beat ourselves up the most, if we think about it, or we feel guilt or regret, it's usually that we're regretting how we showed up in the situation. If you start managing better how you show up and showing up the way you want to, guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to be like, that was a great freaking day. I feel amazing.
And everybody you touched and came in contact with is going to be left with that energy
Yes.
versus the stinks. I'm exhausted and I just want to be sitting somewhere under a warm blanket. Because April and I were talking about the fact that we're both in a cold snap where we live right now, but yet that warmth can come from the way you're showing up and the
Yeah.
energy and the focus.
Yeah. And even difficult conversations can end up positive. I coach how to enter into those too. And so, again, and because people always ask me, what's a graceful boundary? Because I coach to graceful boundaries. Well, it's one that all of you feel good about after it's been
Mm-hmm.
set, right? Like,
Right.
because how many times do we beat ourselves up like, oh, I wish I'd handled that better, or why did I escalate, or this or that?
Mm-hmm.
And so most of our kind of misery comes from how we're self critiquing ourselves. So if you set that intention for how you want to show up and you honor that promise to yourself, because research also shows we'll uphold promises to others, but not to ourselves, right? And
Right.
that's what builds confidence, is showing up for ourselves. Then you're just life becomes different. It becomes a flow. And even the things that are like, I don't really want to do this. But if you go into it with how do I want to show up in this time?
Mm-hmm.
What's the win-win scenario? You're still
Mm-hmm.
going to feel better about it afterward.
So good. And just how can you tap into your motivation for whatever that particular thing is? So it might be the motivation of what you're going to get as a result of that. Or if I'm able to show up as my best right here, how much better am I going to feel than if I choose to be miserable the entire time?
Yeah.
We can choose to be miserable. We can choose to
Yep.
make those around us miserable. But isn't there a better choice we could make?
Absolutely. And, one thing that just came to me is in energy management. Just remember that we're all biologically built differently. And I think we're built differently. I think everything about us is geared toward our purpose in life, right? Like we're here
Mhm.
for a purpose. And, that's why you can't listen to everyone says I should work 9 to 5, or everyone says I should do this. You have to really pay attention to what works for you. So one kind of silly thing, but really powerful, I understood for me, because we talked about I used to do live TV and I had like a TV show. Well, I know when I'm sitting, my energy is calmer. When I'm standing, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. So like, it's like okay, what energy do I want to bring forward, right? If I'm coaching someone, I probably one-to-one, I want to be sitting. If I'm coaching a group or doing a webinar, I'm probably standing because I got to bring the energy. And so just, start noticing these things about yourself, and your life has left clues. Like, I remember my boyfriend in college told me, "You're like the most intelligent woman I know and also the laziest." I don't know if that was the nicest thing to say to me, but when I did my print assessment, I understood I'm an 8-7, which means I'm self directed, self reliant. I like to get stuff done. But if I'm not, 7 means I want to enjoy life. So, we're in college, he's pre med, all he's doing is studying, and I'm like running around having fun. So to him, that felt lazy. So, think about these contradictions with yourself that and really just own them because it's here for a reason, and figure out how you optimize.
And, be cautious of other people's labels rather than just how can you take that information in and think, that's their judgment. That's the way that they're looking at it. And yet it's information for me. So how can I take that information? What do I want to do with that information?
I love it. Like, and how I always really, when I'm coaching for difficult conversations or boundaries, this is how I like them to like replay it, but it could be anything. First of all, just say, okay, what's a win about this? Like, what's a positive aspect about this? And write that down. And then just say, okay, how could I use this information, or how could this make me a better person? Instead of, we get in that cycle of judgment where we're like, well, why? Why do I do this? Like, how should I be? Like, don't should yourself. Just take it. What's positive? What's information or neutral? And what's something maybe I could work on because I want to be a better person, not because of their comment.
So good. So, April, unfortunately, our time is already coming to a close. When we think about time, energy, and confidence management, any looming topic that we've left behind? I mean, I know we could talk about this for hours, yet I want to be sure that there's nothing really niggling at you that you want to be sure you shared before we say our goodbyes.
Well, as I mentioned, a lot of this is easier than you think. Like, I always hear, but April, I don't have time. Again, that's why we do this first, because I want to show you have time to do the coaching time with me, just like, with Meg or anyone else, or what you want to improve. So, an example of that is a simple hack I call 6 minutes to change your life. So, if you take the first 2 minutes when you wake up, and if you're a journaler, journal, like just have an empty sheet of paper, you can speak into your voice notes, whatever, I like to think out loud. So I like to speak into something, whatever you want to do. But for 2 minutes, set the timer on your phone, and you're just going to think about everything you're excited for the day and everything you're grateful for. And again, this is a muscle. Don't beat yourself up. At first, the negativity will creep in, but over time, you're going to build this muscle. And when you can fill that 2 minutes with gratitude and excitement, then you keep doing that. And then at lunchtime, you're going to do the same thing. You'll set the alarm for 2 minutes and you're going to reflect on the morning. So one thing, I couldn't find my AirPods today because I haven't done a podcast yet this year. So I found my AirPods. Like, that's a win this morning, right? That's awesome.
A win. Yes.
I'm not going to focus on the stress of not having my AirPods and beat myself up for not preparing last night. I'm just saying, cool, I found my AirPods. I was able to do the podcast, right? And so at lunchtime, do the same thing. Like, what am I grateful for this morning? What was a win? What happened positive? And then do it before you go to bed. So again, timer for 2 minutes, 6 minutes a day. After 2 weeks, you will be like, what is wrong with me? Why am I so darn happy? Like, it's amazing. 2, 3, 4 weeks, you're a different person.
And it is so true. I'm so glad that you shared that. When I was a marriage therapist, one of the exercises that I would have the couples do is to journal at least once a day, about what they were grateful about their partner, rather than all the things that annoy. Their breathing annoys me. Their whatever. No, it's like because when people come to marriage counseling, they tend to be focusing on what's not working.
Yeah.
And just that exercise of, I get it. I get that things aren't perfect. I get that. And yet, what are you grateful for that your partner is bringing to? It could be that they put the toothpaste lid back on or whatever,
Yeah.
but where is that that intentional shift to looking for what's working rather than what's broken, even in little incremental ways, changes our perspective. So I love that you shared the 6 minutes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I love your outtake because, if you're married or have a significant other, why not share the 2 minutes at night? Share your daily wins. Like, that's a really
Yeah.
fun conversation to have.
Oh, love that. April, I adore our conversation and spending time with you. I'm sorry that our time is coming to a close. We will have links for you to be able to connect with April and the work that she's doing in the show notes for this episode. April Roberts, head Vixen at Vixen Gathering. Thank you so much for joining the Star Coach Show.
Thanks, Meg. It was so fun. Thanks for having me.
Wasn't April just amazing, giving us both some big picture as well as some strategic, tactical things we can do immediately to change the way we're engaging with our calendars? If you want to know more about April and the things that she's offering, and she's got a challenge coming up, check out the links at starcoachshow.com/375, starcoachshow.com/375. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, just grab the links below this video. My conversation with April continues in the Star Coach community, which is an incredible place to build your energy and your confidence. You want to know more about that? Go to starcoachshow.com/community. Now, come back next week as I want to introduce you to Austin LaRoche, who is going to be talking to us about the value of the foundational aspects of building a business. We're going to get some more strategies, some specific actions to take to really build a strong foundation to build your business on. So I look forward to seeing you again next week. If you're enjoying the show, let people know about it. I do this show to help people who want to help other people be the best they can be. And so the more people that know about the Star Coach Show, the happier I am. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. And until next week, this is Meg Rentschler wishing you the very best for your coaching success, for your leadership success, for an awesome week. We'll see you next week.